If you clicked this video expecting a lesbian describing an experience with loneliness, it's not that. This is a review of a comic whose title is My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. Sorry. I'm always annoyed that for so many people, comic seems synonymous with superheroes. Someone says comic book movie, and what they mean is superhero movie. That perception erases the vast diversity in the medium, from the adventure and humor of the Franco-Belgian tradition to the artsy experimental comics that have been produced for decades, to the boom in comic autobiographies and memoirs. Basically, it erases all the comics that I myself really like. The oldest substantial autobiographical comics I know of, in fact, are Japanese, and a far more recent one is My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness by Nagata Kabi. This cover might be the publishing equivalent of clickbait, but it isn't dishonest. That scene does happen, on the first page no less. Moreover, I found Nagata's story more touching than maybe any other book I've read in the last 4 years. From the cover and title, you might expect this to be an erotic manga with a bit of a sad edge. But that isn't the case at all. My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness is one of those harrowing tell-all memoirs that leaves out no embarrassing detail. It takes quite a writer, if you ask me, to admit to pinching money from their mom to buy sex. Well, if I worry about my relatives dying from shock, I won't be able to draw anything interesting. The book's original name is itself an embarrassing tell-all summary, in line with that trend of Japanese manga and light novels having really long and specific titles. Nagata reports, "Here I am, 28 years old. I've never dated anyone, never had sex, and on top of that, never had a real job. It's June 2015, the middle of the day, and I'm face-to-face with a woman from a lesbian escort agency." This in media res opening segues into 3 chapters of her experiences over the last decade that have led to this moment. Her struggles with employment, her eating disorder, her loneliness. Not until the 4th chapter do we return to Yuka, the sex worker, taking Nagata's virginity and causing her to achieve a realization about the social nature of sex. The 5th chapter details Kabi's new outlook on life and touches on how she got the book published. However, My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness feels a bit disorganized and jumbled, which may tie into its origin as a webcomic. Only later did East Press contact her for the 2016 paperback publication, and only a year after that did Seven Seas Press release it to the English reading public. This paperback also includes a bonus chapter detailing Kabi's later experience with a second escort. Nagata's expressive illustrations are all in pink and black. Loving pink and the somewhat cute cartoon style, I was partial to the book from the get-go. Almost every page features 4 wide panels, usually with 1 or 2 captions of narration. Rarely, to highlight significant moments, Kabi uses an alternative panel layout. Though sexuality is certainly a major theme, I'm not sure I'd even call it the main one. Nagata also explores how her fixation on conforming to her parents' desires rather than her own squishes her, on her struggle to find employment or maintain a job, and, of course, her loneliness. At one point, Nagata offhandedly describes how self-harm can be a psychological defense mechanism. I'm no psychologist, so I'm not sure if that's true, but it was an eye-opening description to someone who's never experienced that behavior. Books always contain some tidbit I didn't seek out, but that makes me more empathetic anyway. Nagata's highly expressive artwork uses a lot of metaphorical imagery. Rarely does it depict literal moment-to-moment movement like most comics tend to. For example, this panel on page 24 depicts Nagata's heart beating nervously as a bunch of hands hold microphones to her parents and grandmother, representing her belief in them as normal people who know how to talk to others. The next panel carries on the image, with Nagata being baffled when the spotlight's on her. This bit where Nagata kneels on the ground gnawing on dried ramen until her mouth is bled all over it. It's like a horror scene. The transition from Nagata's struggle to be, well, I don't want to sound judgmental and say something like, be a functional person, but it's a struggle I recognize in my own life to such an extent that I have a difficult time phrasing it more impartially, as I normally would when talking about someone besides myself. Anyway, that transition, maybe the pivotal moment in the book, occurs on page 57 of 143. Nagata, crying in bed, says, "I want to love myself. I want to be able to understand my own feelings." She realizes that she has spent her life ashamed of and denying her sexuality. Apparently not so much because she's attracted to women, as because she just thinks her parents wouldn't approve. Immediately after making this decision, she looks up the lesbian escort agency. The climactic scene, get it, climax with Yuka, is not sexy at all, as you might guess from the cover, but sad and awkward with nothing graphic. Though it is a bit funny. Things got increasingly less sexy as we searched for my hymen a while, like she was looking for lost keys. To me, it seems less like Nagata wants sex, and more like she just wants to touch somebody. In the next chapter, Nagata researches female reproductive organs and learns that the hymen isn't really, well, real. A bit odd that a professional lesbian escort would think it is. "Wait, pee comes out of there?" cries Nagata. One of her many narration boxes says she wishes they taught this in school. Sex education is so important, people. You might be wondering how I, beyond being an unemployed young person, could so identify with Nagata's struggles. It's not the sexual parts. Despite their centrality, I consider those the less compelling aspects of the book. Rather, so many other moments of my lesbian experience with loneliness spoke to me in a way few books do. Like here, "I'm so bad at being alive. I guess I have to die after all. No, this situation is too annoying. I want to draw some manga and make my debut before I die. I've been there with my own projects. What was I? Someone who failed at being a person? I never understood how people could just keep on living." Either of those quotes could have come from me, and there are others too. So other people do feel the same way. Unlike Nagata, I've never had an eating disorder or Oedipal urges, thank God, and even at my worst, I've never gone more than 2 days without a shower. Yet I expect I'd feel immense sympathy for almost anyone if they were as frank about intimate experiences as Nagata, if I could glimpse their bare souls and see how much of the same was in mine. Evidently, other people had similar feelings. On Goodreads, one reviewer says my lesbian experience with loneliness is, quote, "so honest, so accurate and relatable it made me shake and cry." Another remarks, quote, "I loved how relatable and incredibly sad this story was, and how Nagata put into words how so many of us feel, but are too scared to actually say." This other reviewer put it best, quote, "If you've ever wondered if you were the only one who felt like a child watching all the adults succeed at life, read this book." In the 5th chapter, Nagata links her struggles to the sweet nectar that other people partake of that gives them a sense of belonging and purpose. When she finds her calling writing this book and drinks of the nectar again, her suicidal thoughts are put on hold for the very first time. Maybe someday I can taste that nectar. Nagata tries to close her report on a hopeful note, taking care of herself and finding her niche in comics, but it feels like not much has changed. She still doesn't have a job or any friends. In the bonus chapter, we even see that she's stuck in a new rut. It's as if narratively, Nagata set herself up to complete a major character arc, but because the format limits her to reality, the transformation is purely psychological. Perhaps I shouldn't say this about a memoir, but for the character of Nagata, as opposed to the living, breathing author who wrote this character, the change seems unearned. Even so, a positive message is useful. Imagine if she concluded with, "Yeah, I still suck." What good would the story do people who saw their experiences in hers? The actual ending is hopeful, and not overly so. Even if it didn't go well, I had the feeling it'd still be better than what we'd had before. There are still battles left. To quote another of those reviews on Goodreads, Reading has always been my favorite way to escape reality, but reading something so relatable has actually helped me feel better because it's shown me that there are actually other people who feel the same as me, but more important, it helped me feel less alone. Pretty much. My lesbian experience with loneliness might be a bit repetitive, but it's a lovely little book with lovely artwork and a bit of, yes, relatable solace for those struggling to find a place in the world. Nagata has also written a 2-volume sequel, My Solo Exchange Diary. You'd think I'd have read that by now, but nope. Still, My Solo Exchange Diaries received positive reviews, and if it's anything like this book, I figure it's worth your time too. By the way, the sex was nothing like an erotic doujinshi.